So the security light was on, porch light was on, and I don't know, I happened to look up. Then I saw this giant, tall, hairy ape thing. It was big, it was tall. Its head was near the top of the window.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Odd Virginia, episode 16. My name is Alex Koska, and I will be your host and your guide through this journey into the outer reaches of the strange and mysterious. Just this past week, something pretty strange happened to me. Someone I haven't spoken to since high school contacted me via Facebook and asked, "Alex, are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, why? What's going on?" And they said, "Well, I just had a dream about you, and you were standing with a smile on your face, and there's this crowd of people around you all laughing, and you had this very dark aura surrounding you." I found that pretty interesting. Now, I'm not the kind of person who would go on a limb to interpret dreams, but I have a feeling there might be something to interpret there. In fact, once upon a time, I had a dream myself that was very, very weird. Kind of nonsensical, but one of my friends was in that dream, and I had spoken to him about it, and he was like, "Oh, I can tell you exactly what that dream means." And apparently he had been learning how to do this interpretation of dreams. And everything that he told me about that dream was absolutely correct as to what I was going through at the time. And I feel like he had been put in that dream for that very purpose. So I would bring it up to him and he could tell me what was happening in that dream and what it all meant. Odd stuff. So if anybody can interpret that dream, go ahead and put it in the comments below if you're watching on a video platform, or you can send me an email at oddvirginia@protonmail.com. I'd love to see what your thoughts on that are. Now, in regards to the title of this episode, I know you guys are probably thinking, "Alex, are you crazy? A Skinwalker ranch in Virginia?" Well, not exactly. But as far as I can tell, this is the closest thing to Skinwalker ranch we have in Virginia. And you go ahead and listen to this interview and tell me I'm wrong. And if you think you've got something closer, you go ahead and email me that story. oddvirginia@protonmail.com. You know what it is. But we're about to get to the interview. But before we do, I've got some very special little story I would like to share with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and cut the intro music, and we'll get on to it. So every now and again, I like to go online and see if I can dig up any strange and weird stories from Virginia. If I can find anybody who's posted their own stories online or found some sort of historical document that might stick out to me, and see if possibly I can fish an interview out of someone. And while I was doing that, I received a message from somebody who wanted to remain anonymous and had a story from a time he was doing some landscaping in Carter's Mountain, which is nearby Charlottesville, near Monticello. And he said he's only ever told this story to his wife. He wanted to remain completely anonymous. He wouldn't even submit an interview, like a voice recording. He said he would give me all the details there in the message, and I could relay it on the show, but he wasn't going to get any voice recording out of me. He seems like he is very guarded about this. So here's the story. About 2 years ago, he was working on one of those excavator machines up on Carter Mountain. One of those machines that has that huge long arm with a claw in the end used for moving earth around. And apparently he was doing some sort of a restoration, trying to bring the earth into a more natural state. And as he was swinging his excavator around, he made eye contact with a person. He said it looked like a mountain man, and it was no more than 1 foot tall. That's right, it was no more than 1 foot tall. It was a little person, a gnome, or so I would call it. He said it had long, kind of scraggly, oily hair, copper eyes, and its clothing looked like it was made of scraps. He made eye contact with it for a moment, and he said its eyes were very piercing. It had a furrowed brow, looking at him like it was disappointed. And he saw this thing from about 30 yards away. Now, there are legends in the United States of the Native Americans talking about little people living in the earth. You'll hear about this as well with many other cultures. Spanish-speaking cultures call them the duende. In the Nordic cultures, they'll call them the hildefolk. You may have heard of leprechauns in Ireland, or the fairies. And the Nords who came to Northern America with Leif Erikson wrote in their sagas about a diminutive race that they had fought on the land. And they called them the Skraeling. It's just something to think about. I absolutely love stories about gnomes. Anyone who knows me knows that I have garden gnomes aplenty. It's always a delight to hear about things like this. But it's about time to get to what you guys all came here for. Virginia Skinwalker Ranch. Now, you may remember Tara from episode 1. She and her mother have a horse ranch in Tom's Brook. Very strange things occur there, or are said to occur there. Frankly, I believe them. But I had both of them come on the show today. Tara had some stories from Tom's Brook Ranch. Claire's got a lot. Now, during this episode, they were sending me a bunch of pictures of things they've captured, and I'm going to go ahead and post the links to all those pictures in the show notes so that you can follow along as we're talking about them. Are you all ready? Here's the interview. Tonight on the show, I've got Tara coming back with Claire, her mother. Now, Tara, you guys might remember from episode 1, The Creature That Followed Me Home, where she talked a little bit about, well, actually a lot at length about several things that happened in her life, but focusing in on the Tom's Brook area where she and Claire currently live. We had the pale crawler story as well as the Bigfoot, and honestly, it's some of the craziest stuff I've ever heard on this show. So if you guys are interested in anything like cryptozoology and a good bit of paranormal ghost stuff as well, you can go back to episode 1 and listen to that. But Tara, Claire, thank you guys so much for coming on the show tonight. How are you doing?
Thanks for having us. Doing good.
Now, Tara, we already gave you an introduction on episode 1. Claire, if you'd like to just give the audience a little bit of familiarity with you, what you got going on, what you do in your normal life, just give yourself like a brief bio, I guess.
Okay. So normal life. I am a horse trainer and riding instructor, and I live on a farm. In this particular farm, I just recently got a map of the land that shows where Indian burial grounds are. And they're right in our fields, which was really interesting to see. I can shoot you an email or text or something with that in it if you want.
Oh yeah, I'd absolutely love it.
Because it's pretty cool. So just found that out, and we've had some weird experiences here. That being said, I can go back with weird experiences to when I was a kid. So, yeah,
it seems to run in the family, I think.
Yes.
So was this a thing with any of your parents as well?
I remember my mom talking about ghosts and spirits and stuff like that. My dad was a non-believer, and would try to explain away things that happened in our farmhouse when I was growing up. But there were some things he couldn't explain that he would just kind of shut us down.
That tends to be kind of a dad thing. That's sort of stoic skeptic. Yeah, that's a very recurring theme on this show and many others that I listen to as well. I'm a big fan of paranormal podcasts myself. But how long about have you been on this property?
A little over 4 years now.
Okay. And in that amount of time, the things that I've heard that you guys have run into just on this Tom's Brook farm kind of far outweigh what what I've seen or heard about the most haunted places in Virginia. Those places might, they might have some ghostly activity, but that's such an arbitrary title, the most haunted place. What you guys tell me about sounds more like Skinwalker Ranch, to be honest.
It's pretty creepy. Yeah. I'm not going to lie.
Just, it all runs the gamut, right?
Yeah, it really does. Even if tonight was even weird. It's tonight and last night have been high. I guess tonight and last night have been high activity nights. That's what I call it when things get a little crazy. So it's been a little bit strange lately, but it's been a bit strange since we moved here. So that's I guess par for the course.
Now, do you find that these things sort of occur in like flaps where it kind of rises in tension and then just sort of dies down for a while and then comes back a little while later, over a period of weeks or months or however long it might be? Or is it a constant thing?
I don't think it's constant. It does kind of rise and fall. Sometimes it lasts longer than other times. Sometimes it's really brief. Sometimes it goes on for a couple of weeks. It's just, I don't know what the factors are. I'm not sure. I have a friend a neighbor and a friend who's talked to me a little bit about what she picks up here, and she's an energy worker. Like she's a Reiki master and spiritual something or other. Does all kinds of stuff, and she thinks there's a vortex over the farm, like a healing, spiritual, God connected, I don't know what vortex that is on this farm that comes and goes, and it shifts in where it is. Now, I don't know if there's a vortex over this farm, but I guess there could be. I mean, I've seen some things that would point to that, but I don't know for sure, obviously.
It would certainly make sense to me if that were the case. With Skinwalker Ranch, they say the exact same thing. And this is a place that has, kind of in parallel to your farm, just the gamut of weird stuff happening on a constant basis. And of course, it's absolutely famous for it. But that's kind of the theory that people have, is there's some sort of like pathway to the other side that things come and go, like at that physical location.
Right.
So going back to when you guys first moved in, what was like your first inclination or first sighting of something strange that you remember?
I think the first couple things that happened, actually, I think Tara and Alexis saw was the little girl in the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
I believe that was the beginning of it. Either that or Boots walking around upstairs.
And to remind everybody, Boots was the name of the nickname rather of the ghost who stomps in the hayloft of the barn or walks.
Yeah, we don't know his name. I did get a recent picture of him. I can send you that too.
Ooh.
It's already in our chat.
Oh, okay. All right.
Alex,
cool. So he's in that picture. He's kind of leaning against my truck.
Yeah, let me open this up and take a look.
Like Marlboro Man style, 1 foot up against the truck, leaning back, cowboy hat on. You can see him.
You can see a definite silhouette.
Yep. And my first thought was, well, that's Boots, definitely. Because we've always gotten an old school cowboy vibe from him, but I've never seen him that clearly. And then my next thought was, okay, he's not going to hurt me. But then the thought after that was, he's between me and the door.
That's true.
and I wasn't really sure I wanted to walk past him. And there was the thing that was showing up in the window, and I don't know if Tara pointed that out to you. Just to the right of him, there's some weird reflection in the window. That's much harder to make out, but there's something there.
Yeah, there's a shape.
Yeah. And I didn't know what that was. So, I'm out there with the dog, and I'm going, do I just walk up there like normal, or do I not walk up there like normal? And I stood in the field for a few minutes weighing my options, and I went, well, I got to go to bed at some point, so I guess I'll just walk up there. And as I walked up, both things just disappeared.
So you took this picture because you saw that silhouette of a cowboy looking guy right there in front of you?
Yes.
Wow.
I didn't notice the thing in the window when I took the picture. I noticed the thing in the window after I took the picture, and I was looking back at it.
Yeah, but that silhouette's pretty clear.
Yeah, the silhouette, I saw the whole thing. I turned around from walking the dogs, and he was leaning on my truck.
I couldn't imagine what that'd be like.
I stopped walking.
I'd probably do the same.
Yeah, I stopped walking. And he's really tall. I mean, he's really tall. I think his hat is slightly above the level of my truck. If I remember right. I'm not looking at the picture right now, but
it kind of looks like it, yeah. And how tall is your truck about?
My truck is, I want to say, let me go stand at the window here because it's backed up close to the window. I don't want to go outside because it's pouring, but
yeah, it's nasty weather lately.
it's a Cadillac Escalade, so it's, the top of it is probably at the top, close to the top of my head, and I'm 5'9" now ish. So, and he's leaning. He's got his legs out a little bit, so he would have been taller than the top of my
Yeah,
truck.
he'd be well over 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
So, tall guy. Anyway, yeah, that's who Boots is. And so, going back to first experiences, I'm going to go with either Tara and Alexis's experiences with the little girl in the kitchen, or Boots stomping around. And he was much noisier at the beginning than he is now. I'm not sure he really wanted us here at first, and I'll get into that later with the story of him chasing me out of the barn. But he was definitely more aggressive in his noise making when we first got here than he is now.
Now, as someone who's experienced a lot of things prior to moving to this property, when you started noticing things going on, were you just like, oh, okay, this is what this place is going to be like? Or was it?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Stuff happens, and I just kind of go, oh, okay, well, here's another spirit, or here's another ghost, or maybe that's a demon, I don't know, or whatever, and I just keep going. I do smudge my apartment in the barn, and I've got black tourmaline in all the corners, and along the long walls. So theoretically, if that stuff works, my apartment is protected, but I can't protect the whole farm. And then I feel kind of like
that's a lot of sage.
They were here first. So,
Well, that actually brings me to the next question I was thinking of is, do you think that anything is here because of you that might have possibly followed you or has been with you throughout your life?
I think some of it might have followed me. I don't think Boots followed me. I think Boots was already here. Because that is not something I'm familiar with. Not that's that obvious anyway. Other things, I think our energies, mine, Tara's, my mom's, my grandmother's. My grandmother could channel things. Like, she knew when one of our horses was sick. And our horses at that point in time weren't kept on my parents' farm. They were at another farm. And she told us at like 10 o'clock at night that we had to go check on my mom's horse. And my mom said, she's fine. We were there at feeding time, in the evening. And she said, no, we have to go. Something's wrong. And we went, and sure enough, the horse ended up in the hospital for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And had to go like emergency off to the emergency vet, call in the vets in the middle of the night type of thing, and drive her to Leesburg because that's where the equine hospital was. But she had literally been fine a few hours before that when we were there. So there was no indicators that she was sick, and she was. So it does run back in the family. And I think my theory, and I know a lot of other people have the theory, that when your energies are the type of energy that spirits recognize as somebody that they can communicate with, they go to you.
Someone who is somehow predisposed to being receptive of these sorts of things.
Right. Exactly. So I wonder if that's why I've had so many experiences, because I do have that energy that they can pick up on, and they can see that they can communicate with me somehow, and not usually verbally, but somehow, and that I'm receptive to their energies and what have you. So I don't know, maybe they come to wherever I'm living, even if it wasn't haunted before. Now, this place, when we moved in, even before we moved in, Tara, do you remember when we came to look at the property, Kathleen told us that it was haunted?
I remember when Kathleen opened up the, whatever that was, like the door to like the basement.
The cellar, yeah.
Chris's house, and she was like, be nice, ghosts.
Yeah, she talks to them.
Well, if they're there, why don't you talk to them?
Yeah, so it's apparently known that this land is haunted. But
Known by who?
at a minimum, my landlord, us, and people that have lived here before.
Yeah, I was going to say the three of us, obviously. I'm
Yeah.
sure the landlord would know as well if weird things were going on.
And I'm
But it's not
guessing,
like famous in any sort of way. There are no
no,
newspaper
it's not
articles
like
written
on the map of the most haunted places in Virginia.
Ba-ba-ba. Okay, well, maybe after this there will be a newspaper article. I just have to start working for the I don't know what the local paper is called. At least not up there. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of activity going on, and as I said before, it kind of runs the gamut. So you have the ghost in the barn, and actually, you've told me about another ghost in the barn. I don't know how many times you've seen it, but it's not a human. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, there's a horse ghost in the barn, and it walks the aisleway. You can hear it, and it's done it when we're in the barn. And there's no horses in the barn. You literally hear its hooves on the concrete in the aisleway.
And it sounds exactly
walking
like a normal horse when that happens.
It sounds exactly like a normal horse. It sounds just like if I brought one of my horses into the barn and walked them up the aisleway.
Wow, that's incredible.
And then one night I was sitting in the kitchen and I saw a horse, like head and neck, in the window. The wall that is between the apartment and the barn that has the 3 windows on it. You can look out into the barn aisleway.
Mm-hmm.
So in the window that's furthest from the barn doors, I saw the front end of a horse. And I looked, and I'm looking at it, and then it just disappeared. And I couldn't make out color or anything. It was just kind of like gray, like misty looking, ghost looking horse.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was standing there just outside the window.
Oh man, that is crazy. I mean, you do hear about ghost horses usually when they have a rider, but this to me, it almost strikes me as if it's like the companion horse of Boots. Like he and his horse still hanging out on the farm. That's what they like to do in life, and they're still doing it.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. We've had stall doors open and close. They're on the rollers, so you can hear them because they squeak, and they rumble. When they're a heavy door, so when they slide on the track, you hear it if you're inside the barn or in the apartment. And with no horses in the barn, no people in the barn, we've got barn cats, but they aren't moving those doors.
I wouldn't imagine.
You can hear the door slide open.
Yeah, those are heavy doors.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's when he gets his horse out of his stall and takes him for a walk. I don't know.
When Alex said non-human ghost, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you referring to that thing with wings? Big black thing?
No, I was talking about the horse.
Okay.
Do you want to explain the black thing with the wings?
Thought about the big black thing.
Yeah,
I don't remember most of it other than the picture, but
big black thing with wings either is a giant bat or some kind of demon from hell. I have no idea. That's
I was leaning toward demon from hell.
Lord, I hope not. I don't think too many bad things have gone on your property either that I know of.
No, I don't think so either. But it was definitely a creepy looking thing, almost gargoyle-ish, but bigger.
And as far as I know, this is only captured in a single photograph that was taken at the property at night, right?
I think we got it in a couple of pictures. Yeah. Didn't we get it in a couple of pictures? Yeah.
Pretty sure it's in a couple.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. Something huge with wings. It can't be Mothman because there were no red eyes. We know this.
No, it didn't see red eyes.
Mothman's always seen with red eyes.
And it didn't do anything to us. I mean, if it's that close and we're outside and it was bad, I'm sure it would have done something, I would imagine.
Yeah, the vibes on the farm seemed actually to be pretty happy and peaceful every time I've been out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very calming place. Very good energy here. Yeah. And everybody says that when they come here. They're like, oh, it's relaxing. It's calming. It's happy. It's peaceful,
Yeah, there's nothing I've ever experienced out there that has been off-putting whatsoever. And even when we were hiking up the mountainside, and I was hearing wood knocks out in the distance. I didn't mention this on the first episode, but we were out there trying to look for any sign of Bigfoot, and I heard faintly out in the distance some wood knocks, exactly where Alexis said she had heard them coming from prior. But no one else seemed to hear them because they were very faint. So I told everyone to just be quiet and listen again, and it never happened a second time. But even then, I didn't feel scared or any bad energy whatsoever.
Right, right. I know when I saw the I'm assuming Bigfoot walk by the window, that unnerved me a little bit because that is outside of my realm of experiences.
Yeah, tell us a little bit
And I
about that
have heard
occurrence, just to be just real quickly, because
So
I know
with-
it's a short story.
yeah, with that, it is a short story. I was sitting at my kitchen table, and my chair faces the window where the cars are parked. And the light was on outside because there's like a security light on the front of the barn and the back of the barn. And so the security light was on, the porch light was on, and I don't know, I happened to look up, I guess, and then I saw this giant, tall, hairy ape thing. Dark. It was dark. I don't know if it was brown or black or what color its fur was, but it was big. It was tall. Its head was near the top of the window. The top of the window is probably 6.5 feet.
Yeah, it's certainly
up.
taller than I am. I'm 6'1".
Yeah, so I'm going to go with 6.5-ish feet. And it was slightly hunched. So it wasn't standing totally upright, but it wasn't on all fours. It was standing, but it was kind of hunched over a little bit. And it just walked right past the window and kept going. Of course, I didn't get a picture of that. I didn't get video of that. I didn't have cameras set up at that point. Now I have cameras set up.
Oh, you have securities cameras now.
Yes.
Very cool. I'm
security.
excited to see what that might bring in. What did you put those up?
I've had one up for a while, and then I added 4 more this past weekend, and I'm hoping to add another 4.
Oh, cool.
So we'll cover most of the way around the whole barn.
That's exciting. A lot of these phenomena seem to elude cameras for some reason. I don't know what it is, but that is exciting because you do every now and then capture something on an automated camera.
Yes. So this was it last night? Yeah, last night. I caught the little girl in one of the images, and I sent that to Tara. She's not really as clear as the one where she's by the picnic table, but you can definitely tell it's a little girl, and she showed up on the camera in the barn.
Oh,
right behind I have a round bale in the aisle that I pull off to fill hay nets in the stalls, and she's like right next to / behind the hay bale, and she just shows up and then she disappears. And that was last night at roughly 4 o'clock in the morning.
oh, that's way past her bedtime.
Yeah.
No, did she move at all
Definitely.
in the capture? Did she move, or did she just sort of appear and then disappear?
She just sort of appeared and then disappeared. She kind of faded in and then faded out.
Did you get any detail on
And
it?
What's that?
Did you get any detail on her physical appearance?
Not really. Definitely not any more than was at the picnic table. Now, at the picnic table, she's like a black silhouette. Yeah. In this, she was the white ghostly color.
Okay.
So kind of the fog color. But definitely the same girl wearing the same outfit, just in the barn as a white image as opposed to a black image out by the picnic table.
Let me toss this over to Tara. Did you remember what her physical appearance looked like when you saw her that one night?
Dude, it's been so long. All I remember was that she was wearing a dress and she looked young. I don't remember. Like,
How about
my
her?
brain is telling me that she had like curled pigtails, but like,
That's what I was gonna ask about her hair.
how long ago was that?
That was
Like,
a very long time ago. Well, it was at least
Yeah.
4 years ago.
I sent you the video and those photos if you wanted to look real quick.
Okay.
Though. I forwarded them to you on Facebook.
On Facebook. So it's a very low frame rate, but there's something ghostly white moving around.
Yes.
Cool. All right, let me look at the next one.
So the one with the ghostly white thing moving around is back behind the ladder, kind of in front of the stall that's past the ladder, like by the door.
And then it just disappears.
Yeah.
I hate it. Hang on. Blech. It doesn't disappear. It moves in front of the hay bale.
Oh.
Like if you rewatch it and then watch right after it teleports, if you watch the right slope of that hay bale, it pops up right there and you can catch it on the side of the hay. It's like it noticed the camera. It's bad. I hate it.
You say that about a lot of things, Tara. I freaking love it.
No, like rewatch it. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The little girl is in the window just to the right of the hay bale. So not the one that has the thermometer in it. So that white round circle is a thermometer so I can monitor the temperature inside the barn. The window behind that. And her head doesn't even come to the top of the hay bale. I think she's in the apartment.
She was in the apartment when you saw her too, Tara, right?
Yeah, she was standing by the sink in that corner.
Yeah, and that's a very small apartment, so the sink's not far away from that window.
No, it's not. And it looks like she's looking at the camera. Like I can't make out facial features, but I can tell it's the front of her face, not the back of her head.
It's so blurry that it's hard to tell. It's very low resolution when you're looking through there.
It's not the greatest, especially with the night vision.
But I'd have to say there's definitely something moving around.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have at least 3 ghosts on the property. We've got Boots the cowboy. We've got the horse. I'm just going to call him Charlie for my own sake.
All right.
And then there's the little girl.
Yes.
Are there any other apparitions or entities that you've noticed who may act differently from them or who might have a different personality or appearance?
She saw a mimic.
I saw a mimic. So yeah, I have one of those stand-up fans. Like that's like, I don't know, 3.5, 4 feet tall or whatever.
And they do the quarter turn rotation.
Yes. And it turned into a black blob. That was kind of like over my shoulder behind me. And then it turned back into a fan. So I still have the fan. It hasn't done it again.
There's something a little dysfunctional about that fan. You might want to get a warranty refund or something. That's a bit odd. So you were looking over your shoulder and it turned into a black amorphous blob.
Yes.
She's got pictures of it. I don't know where.
Yes,
like
somewhere.
which chat you put them in.
For the pictures.
Well, if you have
I
pictures of anything that you're talking about, you send them to me. I'll put them all up on the description, the show notes of the video, so people can look at things and come up with their own conclusions.
All right, awesome.
But yeah, I'd love the more of that kind of material to supplement the show, the better, because people get to see what you're talking about firsthand.
Right. So then there's that one picture that has, I don't know what it is. I called it a fish. It's not a fish, obviously, because it's in the apartment. But one of those pictures that Tara sent to you, there is a white blob that it looks like a fish with a fish mouth that is in that end window by the hay bale, but it comes into the second window also, and that's where you can see kind of the mouth of it. And then it disappears also. So it was there for a few seconds and then disappeared.
So there's just a fish flying around, possibly.
Yeah, a really big fish.
Real big fish.
Like
Now, would you say it's a large or smallmouth bass?
really big fish. Well, based on the size of the fish, the windows are like 5 feet wide. So his tail is somewhere behind the window, maybe into the bedroom door, and his mouth is into the second window. So I'm going to go with large.
Wow. Yeah, more like a tuna sized.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting thing. I mean, obviously we don't
So
have tuna fish in North America, so it can't be the
No.
it can't be the ghost of one of those. That's very, very weird.
Let me see if I can put it in the Discord chat real fast so you can see the one I'm talking about. I don't know how to work Discord particularly well, but I can. Here we go.
Well, once again, there's something very white and foggy looking in that window.
Yeah. And then look at the second window. That's where you can see his mouth. It's slightly open.
Yeah, I'm not really making that part out. I can see okay, so there's 3 window panes. In the left one, I see something that looks pretty large and milky white, and in the right one, I see something pretty large. Nothing in between them. In the second window.
So pane. in that middle window, about halfway down on the left side, is the very front of the face of the fish.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it all just sort of looks amorphous. I can't really make anything out of it.
Hard to say. Anyway, that showed up. So it's we get some weird things around here.
Absolutely. There's a possibility of a ghost fish. A ghost tuna.
A possibility.
Well, I can't wait to see what else the security cameras end up gathering, because that is absolutely a great tactic for a piece of property like this, where stuff seems to be constant, but you're not always awake or there to see it, especially when it's happening at night a lot of the time.
Right.
So those are going to be very, very cool to see. What they end up pulling up. But there have been a number of just other sorts of weird occurrences outside of the ghostly phenomenon. Can you tell us anything about any of that?
So most recently, odd occurrence was this happened last night also. Like I said, we're in a high activity point right now, so lots of stuff is going on, and I'm watching the cameras right now to see if we catch anything while we're talking, because talking about it can increase activity. So anyway, last night, my cat woke me up around 4:00 in the morning, which is also around the time when I caught this stuff on the camera. And she woke me up because I heard her scratching at something in the bathroom. Now, she scratches on the windows out in the kitchen regularly, but I've never heard her scratching on anything in the bathroom. And I yelled at her to stop. I mean, I didn't yell, but I told her to stop, and she stopped, and then she started back up again. And I told her to stop again, and she stopped, and then she started back up again. And I did this a couple more times, and then I went in. I got out of bed and I went in there, and she was scratching at the mirror above the sink, the big mirror above the sink.
Why would she be scratching at the mirror?
I have no idea. So I picked her up because it was a really annoying sound. And I brought her back to the bed and I laid down, and she promptly got herself out of bed, went back to the mirror, and started scratching again. And I said, "Stop it." And the noise stopped. And then it didn't start up again. So I figured, okay, she's done. Good. Fine. And I went back to sleep. And I slept for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, something like that. And I hear clawing at wood coming from the kitchen area. And I was like, what is she doing now? What is this cat doing? She's lost her mind tonight. She's clawed at the mirror. Now she's tearing up a piece of furniture in the kitchen. So I yell at her to stop. And I actually yelled that time because I was really annoyed. This is the second time she's woke me up. And she stopped. And then she starts up again. I'm like, what? Stop it. And she stops and she starts back up again. So I get up again. And I go into the kitchen, and the cat's not in the kitchen. All my other cats and my dogs are sleeping on my bed.
So there was no culprit.
No, except I opened the door because I thought maybe something was scratching at the door because, maybe one of the barn cats or something like that. Or maybe it wasn't the brightest thing to open the door because I didn't even turn the light on out there. I just opened the door, and there's Pride, who is the cat who was scratching at the mirror. Nothing let her out of the apartment last night. That's what prompted me to go through the video. I spent hours today going through these videos to see if any of the doors opened. Not one door opened. Not one light came on. Nothing. So she went from scratching on the mirror to outside.
That is so odd.
Somehow. Yeah. And then in the morning, when I went out to walk the dogs, Fritter, who had been also sleeping on my bed, so was also inside. Maybe I was going to check on Duncan. I don't know what I was doing. I was either walking the dogs or going to check on Duncan. And
Duncan's the pony.
Duncan's the pony, yep. So he was in his stall, and I might have been going to throw him his morning hay or whatever, but then Fritter's out there too. And I'm going, how on earth did you two cats get outside? Because I didn't let you out. Quiet. I didn't let them out. Nobody let them out. No doors opened. The windows don't open. And all the doors were still locked when I got up in the morning.
So basically your cats learned how to phase through walls.
Or mirrors.
These are the ex-cats.
Yeah.
That's amazing. They were inside. There's no one to let them out.
Right.
And they're scratching on the outside door.
Yeah.
And do you sleepwalk? Are you known to sleepwalk at all?
I don't sleepwalk, and I would have shown up on the camera because you can see in the kitchen from that one.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's simply weird.
Right. And you can see the doors from two of the cameras. So the bathroom door you can see, and it also goes to the barn in case I want to let students in the bathroom or anything like that. The door to the bathroom is just past the ladder that you see in the video.
Yeah.
So if that had been opened, you'd have seen light come out of the doorway, and because the door opens into the bathroom. And then my front door is covered by the camera that is literally over top of my front door. So anything going in or out would have been caught on that camera. And nothing was on either one.
Yeah, no, that does sound pretty infallible. The cameras look like they're at a very low frame rate, where it looks like they're catching about an image every half a second, maybe.
Yeah, I had it changed. I changed the frame rate just because I was going through like 12 hours of video.
But you can't sneak in half a second.
Yeah.
Not like that, no.
But I still couldn't have gotten them out the door in that time frame.
No, it's not humanly possible to do that.
Yeah. So I'm very confused as to how the cats got out, and her scratching at the mirror made no sense. And the only thing I can think of is like there was some portal in the mirror or whatever that they went through, which I felt kind of crazy when I first thought that. I still feel kind of crazy thinking that. But with everything else that happens here, well,
This is a good segue to something else that, I get a lot of stories of this property kind of secondhand down from Tara. And she told me one time that you had seen something in the field in one of the horse pens, I believe, that looked like a portal, right?
Yes. So I saw that straight out from the front door. It was, the electric pole that's in the corner of the front field.
Yes.
So it's like right close to the fence there. So just above and offset to the left, if you're looking down at the field from the barn, was about a 6 foot tall, maybe 3 or 4 foot wide, glimmery oval. Looked like an oil slick was in the sky or in the air. It wasn't up in the clouds. It was, straight out in front of me practically, but off the ground because that's downhill from where I am in the barn.
How high off the ground would you kind of estimate that it was?
20 feet.
Okay.
Ish. Yeah.
And do you know about the circumference or diameter that it might have been?
About 6 feet tall, 3 or 4 feet wide.
Okay. Now, I don't know if you feel like you're crazy talking about this sort of thing, but I would have to tell you that I've heard of these things before. Not very often. You'll hear about a lot of other things more often, specifically hauntings and ghosts and apparitions and that sort of thing. But I've heard about things that look exactly like what you're talking about at least once or twice in shared experiences on different shows and podcasts and emails.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they're super common, but then again, I don't think that they don't exist. That was another one of those things that caught me off guard.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's certainly one of the more rare experiences that I'd have to say you're very lucky to have seen that. But other people have seen that, and to me, that's just a confirmation. Like, there is something that, I would say it's a portal. Other people have said they're portals.
Right.
And when they traverse through them, they find themselves in strange places. So I think way more people have experienced these things than have shared them. And with the weird phenomenon that are going on your property, I'm totally sure that that's what you saw.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure too. And I can't say I wouldn't have gone through it, but being 20 feet off the ground that presents an issue.
Yeah, you need a really powerful pogo stick.
Yeah.
And nothing went in or came out of that?
Not that I saw. That said, there's a lot of things that move around that we don't see. So, that we don't see what's moving them, I guess is a better way to put it. One of the first times my neighbor Chris came up here, he said he'd believe it when he saw it, as far as the ghosts in the barn. And I said, be careful what you wish for. And at that point in time, I had box fans hung on the front of the stalls. And he's standing next to the box fan. I'm in the stall. He's standing near the box, not too far from the box fan, but he's in front of the stall, maybe a foot or two away from the box fan. And the whole box fan lifts off the stall guardrails and slams back down into the rails.
Slams.
Bang.
Like not just gravitational force, but like muscle force.
No, something lifted it up and threw it back down.
Wow.
And then he believed in my ghosts.
Yeah, well, he said he would. He kept to his word.
Yep. And it was moments after he said that. Moments.
Beautiful irony. I love it.
They wasted no time to say, yeah, we're here. And I think it was shortly after that the Boots chased me out of the barn.
Yeah, so tell us about that.
That one, I don't remember if I was bringing horses in or turning horses out or what I was doing, but I was doing something in the barn, and I was headed back out to the field. So I must have been bringing horses in. So I was going back out to the field to get the next horse to bring in, and something stomped really heavily right above my head. So I was at the, probably around the middle of the barn-ish, and it stomped really, really heavily. And then it started stomping really fast, really, like very heavy person stomping really hard right above my head. And I started to walk away, except it was following me. And it was, like running in place. So I took off running because that scared me.
Yeah.
And I ran out the back of the barn. It ran right over top of me, all the way to that edge that's at the far end of the barn, where the loft stops. And I ran out of the barn. I ran probably 25 feet out, 30 feet out, and turned around and was just frozen and staring into the barn. I didn't go back into the barn that night. I was like, no, I'm done. Horses that are in the field are staying in the field. Horses that are in the barn are staying in the barn. I'm not going back in the barn tonight. And I went around the outside, back to the front, and hit the light switches because they're right by the door. Hit the light switches, went back into my apartment. Didn't sleep well that night because I was pretty unnerved. And the next day, I went out and spoke to Boots and said, what you did really scared me. And I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to get rid of you. I understand you live here, but we need to cohabitate. And I need you to not scare me or my horses because they can get hurt and I can get hurt. And I don't want any of us to get hurt. So if you can use the barn for what you want to use the barn for, that's fine with me. Please don't come in my apartment and please don't do things that scare me or my horses or try to hurt us. And that was the last time he ever did anything that was really aggressive sounding. He still makes his presence known, but not in a violent way.
There's a lot of wisdom to that. I listen to a lot of Sasquatch YouTubers myself, or podcasters, or people who just have a lot of experience with this sort of thing. And that is always sort of their message, is just to, when you go out into the forest, you make your intent clear. You know that they're there. You tell them, hey, I'm just here for this. I'm just here for that. And leave me alone for a little while and we'll be good.
Right.
I'll be out of your way in no time. And I think it's the same way with a lot of these supernatural phenomenon, is that you need to verbally communicate your intent and what you're doing. And, there will be some sort of an understanding in between the two of you.
Right. And that's, I think, pretty much what we've come to, is an understanding. We both live here and, we've figured out how to live here peacefully. Which that works for me.
Yeah, I'd recommend it to anyone, really. It does seem to work out really well for the people who utilize that. Not that these sorts of things are encountered so often that you can actually document and quantify the results of such a tactic, but I really do think anecdotally that works.
Right. I think so too.
Speaking of weird creatures that you've seen, I've heard that you have also seen the pale crawling creature that Tara had also talked about in our debut episode. Do you want to talk about that at all?
So I have the sightings I had of it. I saw it one time in the same place as Tara on the road on the way out of here.
You didn't just see it chased you.
Well, yeah, it chased me. It chased my car. I wasn't on my feet, but it ran alongside my car and then darted off into the woods. So it was right next to me for at least 30 seconds, maybe a little bit longer.
Like parallel to your driver's side door is what you're saying?
Yes.
Wow. So you had a clear view of that.
Clear view of it, ran right along next to me. Very lanky, skeletal-like, creepy, tall, not moving quite correctly, human thing.
That's so off-putting.
Yeah.
Now I want to adopt Tara's phrase. I hate it.
You should.
It was around the same time when we were seeing those that these scratches ended up on my horses, and I can show you these pictures.
Yeah, send those to me. I wanted to ask you really quickly, though. These things are commonly, at least currently, called pale crawlers. Was it walking on all fours?
It was walking on all fours until it was running. And then it was not, but it would occasionally drop down and use its arms. Ooh. So every few strides, it would go back to all fours.
Okay, so it would kind of run on 2 feet for a couple strides and then propel itself with its arms again and keep running on 2 feet. Kind of.
Yes.
Okay. I can imagine exactly what that would look like, and I hate it.
That was really, really scary also.
Would you how would you describe its fullness? Did it look emaciated, or was it muscular, or was it looking kind of fat?
Emaciated.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely emaciated.
Long-limbed?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, if there are any other details that you could share, just going from its head down to its feet, I'd love to hear it, just for the record.
The skull was, it almost looked slightly oversized.
Well, in an emaciated body, that would probably be the case. But it strikes me that you said skull instead of head. Why did you say that?
Yeah, it didn't have enough flesh to it. It was, one was the color, because the color, it was like bone white. Not that white like the gray ghost white, but like bone. So kind of like an off-white, not quite beige, but not quite white, somewhere in between.
Okay.
And he had a very pointy chin, very, very pointy chin. Pretty big mouth, but again, mouths look bigger when you're emaciated.
Yeah.
So it's possible that was just because it was so skinny.
Did you see teeth?
I don't remember.
The reason why I ask is because in folklore, the lips rot away. The lips and
that could
and
also
the nose
be why
rot
its
away.
mouth looked so big.
Yeah.
I probably saw teeth, but I'm not. Maybe I blocked out the teeth.
Well, it's also kind of hard to tell when you're seeing this thing as you're trying to, outrun it.
Yeah. So it was definitely strange looking. It had fairly broad shoulders, very narrow waist, very lanky. Like I said, very skeletal, but not a skeleton.
It was a skeleton with skin.
Yeah, a skeleton with skin.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that really matches up to what you would hear with these pale crawler stories, and you'll hear them all across the United States, and even beyond sometimes, but mostly in the United States, from coast to coast, these things are sighted, and they're very rare compared to anything like ghosts or Sasquatch or some other things. Floating orbs or UFOs. These things are very, very rare. And I don't know if I would call you lucky or extremely unlucky to have seen it, but certainly,
I felt pretty unlucky.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see it. I hadn't ever heard of them prior to that. I didn't even know what they were. When Tara told me what they were, I was like, what? This is mind blown type of thing. So.
Well, you didn't see one until you knew what they were either, so.
That's true, but that's also, you said that you talk about them and they tend to start showing up. So,
according to folklore, yes.
Yeah.
Now, this is the third time I've actually had a story of one of these things on my show. And honestly, I feel really lucky in that regard because I don't have to see them. I can just get other people to tell me what it's about.
Right. You don't have to experience it.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch that with a 3,000-foot pole. But
no doubt.
But I can talk about it. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. This has maybe become a recurring theme, and I hope it does, because the rarer it is, the more mysterious it is, and the more mysterious it is, the more I want to know about it.
Right.
And we're starting to build up some sort of pile of information, a bit of an archive here on Odd Virginia. These weird pale crawling creatures showing up in Virginia. We've had the Tom's Brook, and we've had the Mechanicsville crawler, and we'll see if any more come forward, and we can start figuring out what the hell this thing is.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I did find a better picture of Boots, his face. Let me send that real fast. Not to switch topics again so suddenly, but I was just wanted to send this before I forgot about it. But
Ew,
yeah,
it looks like a squirrel.
It's not. No, that's his ear.
Oh.
There's clearly an ear there. The rest of it's not.
I'm sorry, I saw that as like a bugged out squirrel eye, and then like the thing at the very bottom looks like a nose.
That is an ear.
Yeah. That is an ear. It's like kind of
I
a
see it
profile
now.
shot.
I just
Yeah, and
like
you
an
can see
abstract
his
swirl.
mustache.
Okay.
You can see his hair. You can see his mustache. You can see his jawline.
Mm-hmm. Ew.
Yeah, that I saw sitting at the kitchen table and took a picture of it.
So that was sort of like in a appearance in the window.
Yep.
Didn't look like he was outside of the window. It looked more like just his reflection was in the window, because that's sort of what I'm seeing.
I couldn't tell if it was his reflection in the window or if he was outside of the window. I kind of go back and forth on that. It looks more like a reflection to me.
Yeah, me too. Looks like it's just
But
sort
I
of
don't
a
know
clearing on
anybody
that
who
flat
looks
plane.
like that.
Yeah, I mean, really, the only thing I can definitely make out is the ear. In front of that looks like a COVID mask, and then nothing.
Yeah, it's hard to make out much more. Although, like, if I blow the picture up, if you look where his shoulder would be, like right below his ear, there's like chevrons or something on his shoulder. 2 chevrons, maybe 3.
I see it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, but
But I also see the mustache.
that is something you'll definitely see on military uniforms.
Mm-hmm. Which wouldn't surprise me if there was a military spirit here also.
Well, being Virginia,
Yeah, exactly.
a lot of military history. Yeah, I can't really say that I see much more to this than an ear. And it's a spitting image of an ear, but
It's definitely an ear.
yeah. Now, what is all the other noise that's going on in the glass? It looks like it's frost or something all around.
I think it was snowing or something.
Okay.
Yeah,
but snow's not going to make an ear.
No, snow is not going to make an ear. And, when I'm looking at it, I can see the hair around the ear, like above his ear, and then his cheek in front of the ear and going down to his chin. Maybe a little bit of facial hair at the bottom of the jawline in front of his ear, and then his mustache, and the very, very edge of his nose above his mustache. And he's kind of looking at an angle. If he was standing outside, he'd be looking like into the bird cage there.
Yeah, it definitely looks like he's looking at the bird cage. And those are some very cute parakeets, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was looking at them.
He's just standing there watching the parakeets.
Dude, I love watching those birds. They're so funny and they have so much personality.
Oh, they really do. They love music. They have a blast.
So I want to move on. I'm just kind of prodding right now at all of the different phenomenon that is possible because you have such a wide gamut going on there. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering about things like spirit orbs and unidentified objects flying in the sky. Do you have any experiences with something like that? Any sightings?
So
tell me about the green things.
The green things, yeah. So I've got some pictures. So as you know, you've been to our barn. There are no lights upstairs.
No, there aren't.
And there's no green lights anywhere. All of our lights are white lights. So there was a night where I caught pictures. I was taking pictures because I was sensing something, like just feeling things. And I caught green lights coming out of the cupolas.
Out of the what?
On the camera, the things on the very top of the barn. Those square there's 2 square ones on either end, and there's a rectangle one in the middle that sit at the very top of the barn. They're decoration. They don't actually do anything. Cupolas.
I'm gonna put that in my lexicon.
So I'm gonna send one more picture. I just sent one through, and I'm sending the other one. So I caught that.
Look at that
out of the cupolas, and then I caught. This is looking up from the back of the barn up into the loft. So I'm standing at the back door and took the picture into the loft. And this is an interesting light because it has green and blue, which you'll see in a second here.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that explains these kind of triangle-shaped lights with the blue flare coming off of them.
Yeah, that's incredibly strange. There's like a sort of a green blocky wisp, and then there's like sort of a blue neon light with blue, almost like a mist looking substance projecting upwards out of it.
Yeah.
That's so strange. Like, that's seriously alien looking stuff. That's weird.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really strange. So I caught those, and I was like, "What is that?" And I tried to explain it. I tried to figure it out because, well, that's what you do. You try. I try to come up with a rational, logical explanation for the things that I see, but when you can't, you can't.
I have to comment. There's like something in the foreground, and then there's also sort of the same thing a little bit behind it, right?
Like two of them?
Yeah, there's two blue lights and two green lights there. The one in the background literally looks like it's projecting a green laser.
It does. It does.
It's weird.
It's very, very strange.
It looks like a laser. And I have green lasers right here in my basement. That's exactly what that looks like.
Very, very strange. And then this I caught. I'm going to send you a couple more pictures of. I'm going with maybe it was a comet, but I don't know because there's two lights next to it that I can't really explain. And I have multiple pictures here to show of that where, like I took them in succession.
There's definitely a very large light on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And
that is well up in the sky. That's not down. There's no road there or anything like that. That's up in the air.
Yeah, no, that's definitely up in the air. I mean, you're looking at the mountaintop.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this could be attributed to any sort of extended exposure, but it looks really large. It looks huge, absolutely.
Yeah, these were just taken with my iPhone. I don't have a fancy iPhone. I have an older iPhone.
Okay, so here it is in another position. It looks massive.
Yeah, it was huge. And it grew. It started small. The last picture I sent you was how it started, and then it turned into that big flame-looking thing with the two dots off to the back of it.
Yeah,
which you can faintly see in the last picture, but
I'd almost think that those were stars, except that you can't see any other stars, Sue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they can't be stars. The heck is that?
Yeah, I'm like, if that's a comet, somebody's in trouble because that's gonna hit.
Yeah, that just wipe out one country, a small country.
Right? So, I saw that and then I was like, well, if this is the end of my time on Earth, so be it. Okay, I'm going to go make a cup of coffee now.
I can't blame you if you saw that in the sky and thought that maybe it was done.
Yeah. I was like, oh, maybe a missile, maybe a comet. I don't know what either one really looks like. I mean, I've seen comets way out in the sky, but they don't look like that.
No. Yeah, comets are generally kind of flying, streaking. They've got the vapor trail or whatever, that liquid trail behind them. This is something. It looks like it's floating from the picture. It looks like it's hovering.
Yeah, and it was moving very slowly. Very slowly. Like I had time to go back inside, get my phone, go back outside, take pictures of it, multiple pictures.
No,
and then it just disappeared.
Getting a good picture of what you're seeing is a very, very difficult thing to do. And I think you've got a great picture here, but there's a lot of information I can't gather based on just a picture. Could you tell, like how far beyond the mountain it was, or if it was like right on top of the mountain?
It was hard to tell. It looked like it was behind the mountain, like past the mountain. But it didn't look like it was that far past the mountain.
So just beyond, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just looks like a chunk of like moon rock, like a massive chunk of moon rock.
Huge chunk.
Yeah, like it looks like it could be hundreds of feet long.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird. Well, we're about to run up against the time. Claire, is there one last story that you want to end on?
Gosh, I don't know.
Actually, hold on one second, because
Okay.
when I interviewed Tara, she said when you guys moved in there, she heard wailing or siren sounds in the mountains, and you said that it was just tornado siren sounds.
Tornado sirens, or like the firehouse siren or something like that.
Did you really
We
believe
do
that
hear
that's
that-
what it sounded like, or did you or were you just
Well, I
trying to make an excuse to comfort your daughter?
I don't know if it was to comfort her or to
Or to comfort yourself?
try to explain it away to myself. Yeah, exactly. It's definitely not the electronic siren sound of a firehouse or a tornado siren or anything like that. It's very weird. And it's not the coyotes. We hear the coyotes all the time.
Oh yes, I love coyote sounds. They're yipping and howling and yelling.
Yes.
There's something very cute about that to me.
So, it wasn't either of those. It wasn't a mountain lion screech. It wasn't anything I could easily explain. It's very howly, but not like a dog howl. It's definitely an odd sound, and that happens fairly frequently here.
You still hear it?
Oh yeah, not daily or anything, but pretty regularly.
I'd love to get a recording of that. I mean, I already know the recordings exist, but
I've tried to catch it a couple times. The last time I heard it was a few weeks ago, and it was much further off in the distance than it usually is. And my phone did not pick it up. So I recorded it, and then I made another. I think I made like 3 recordings, and you couldn't hear it in any one of them. But it was much fainter and much further away. So the next time that I hear it, when it's closer, I'll try to record it again and shoot it over to you.
So does it happen for long periods of time when it does happen? The infrequent times that it happens, do they do it for maybe like an hour or more or less?
It's probably just a few minutes, really. Yeah. Maybe like 10 minutes tops.
Okay.
More often is probably in the 3 to 5 minute range, 10 minutes being a long one. And it's always a solitary one. It's not, you don't hear a back and forth. You just hear the solitary howl noise.
And do you think that is a Sasquatch sound that they're making?
It very well could be. I can't come up with a better explanation. Again, I tried to logic it out, but I failed.
Personally, that's what I would probably call it. That long, drawn out howl. I tried to match it up with tornado sirens. It didn't seem to. And as far as people who have had Sasquatch experience, it seems to line up pretty well with the long drawn out howls that they make. So that's my guess. I'm not gonna 100% say that's what it is, but I would think so.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am with it. I can't really explain it any other way, so that's what I'm gonna go with.
All right, Claire. Well, we're running up against the clock, and I know you've got a lot going on as far as just weird things. That UFO that you just showed us was probably honestly the highlight of my night.
Oh, awesome!
That was a very strange looking thing off in the mountaintop.
Isn't it?
Yes. I have no rhyme or reason to what that is. That's, as far as I know, that's the second coming of Christ. It's crazy,
right?
But do you have anything else that really stands out that you might be able to share with us?
Oh, from this farm, we've had electrical issues. We've had noises and voices where you can't quite make out what they're saying. Cabinets opening and closing.
Okay, that sparks a memory, because this is something that happened when I was there. I came over to play a D&D game. And
Stop.
What do you mean stop?
I forgot about it.
And Tara went to the bathroom, and she came out and she said that one of the cabinet doors was opening and closing on its own.
that really sparked my interest because I hadn't seen anything move it on its own at the property, albeit like the 2 or 3 days I've ever spent there. I've experienced some weird things, but not, of course, not nearly as much as you guys have. But that was something that happened while I was there. It really stood out to me, was that the cabinet door was opening and closing on its own. I love that story.
Yeah, I've had cabinets open and close. I've had the shower door slide open and closed and rattle. And like I said, the stall doors open and close. Lights flicker on and off.
Well, they do that in my house too, but I think it's just from the 1940s wiring.
That could be it.
Well, it's an easy explanation. We'll put it that way.
Right. Yeah, I don't think my barn is a 1940s barn. It's a newer barn, built on old land, but a newer barn.
When was the barn built?
It was built by my landlord, so, within the last 20, 25 years.
That's very new.
Yeah, so really not that new. And so I would go with any of the spirits here are from probably an original barn. So, the original farmhouse and the original spring house are still on the property. Those are the two houses right down from the barn. And I would imagine they had barns at some point, but where they were built, I'm not sure. I found some footings out in the field where there were buildings, but I don't know where their original barns would have been. It was a farm though, so they had to have buildings and barns.
Have you ever spoken to the landlord about the history of the property?
Not really. We're not very tight. I talk to him when I'm dropping off my rent check, or
it's more of a formal relationship.
Exactly. We're friendly, but we're not socially friendly. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, that would probably be some good insight as to who Boots is, and that horse that I think I named him Charlie.
Yeah. And talking with his wife, it didn't seem like she knew how to identify anybody that was around. She was just kind of like, ghosts were coming in here now, or something like that. Whatever she said when we were walking into that cellar.
I think it was Ghost Be Nice. I just really feel like it was Ghost Be Nice.
Which also makes me wonder, if she's asking them to be nice, was there something they did before that wasn't nice?
I just thought it was weird that she said that to people that I've never seen.
She's never met before, yeah.
Well, maybe even just knowing of their presence puts you on edge. It makes you want to ask them to be nice, right?
That's possible.
Well, Claire, this place, I'd have to say, this is Virginia's Skinwalker Ranch. And maybe there are Skinwalker ranches everywhere around the country, and people just don't know about them because they haven't been highly publicized. But these stories do rival, sort of, in a way, the absolute craziness that's going on down there in Utah. Everything you can think of that is abnormal, paranormal, supernatural, ghostly.
It's here, yeah.
It's there. It's just there.
Right.
It's absolutely nuttiness.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And this place is so active. Like I said, growing up on my parents' farm, I can tell, I could give you a whole nother episode of incidents there, but, and other places that Tara and I have lived. But here it's such a variety that I've never experienced before. I've dealt with the ghostly things pretty much my whole life, but everything here it just puts it over the top for sure.
But the vortex thing your friend was talking about, it makes a lot of sense.
It does.
They've had those sort of like empaths and sort of spirit tuners that were down there at Skinwalker Ranch, so the exact same things about it. This is a place where spirits pass through,
right?
And it's weird to think that there has to be a geological location involved, but how much do I really know about geologic locations in the spirit world and their correlations? Basically nothing.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. I've heard a little bit here and there. She said something about the mountains and the river and how this farm is surrounded. So, it's kind of like its own little space, separate from everything else, because the river cuts it off on the one side and the mountains cut it off on the other side. And if it wasn't for the bridge, you couldn't get in or out of this place. And she said she thinks that has something to do with it. The formation of the land around here is a safe space for the vortex or portals to be.
Yeah. Well, here's something that I've had a bit of a thought about. It has a lot of relation to do with Missing 411, the research that's been done by David Paulides. He's a famed author and investigator, ex-cop. Basically, he investigates missing persons cases. And he says that normally these things take place in granite fields and near water. And mountains hold a lot of granite. And you're literally right next to, mountains filter out water. So it only makes sense that these things can sort of align, especially if it does happen to be sort of supernatural or something like that they'll align with mountainous areas, because all of the water is being filtered down through the mountains and through the granite.
Right. And that makes sense.
And we're talking about missing persons cases in which, someone just basically disappears off the face of the map.
You're alone. So if I disappear, check the vortex or the portal.
I mean, if you're really open to possibilities, there's a couple. You're either in the mountain with the little people, you've been taken away by the Sasquatch, or you've been abducted by a UFO, or you've been taken somewhere in time. Like, I don't know what the possibilities really are, but those seem likely to me.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, this has been an absolutely great conversation. I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your stories with me. I'm just gonna say it again. Skinwalker Ranch of Virginia. So is there anything you'd like to promote before we hit our outro?
I have like I said, I teach horseback riding lessons. My farm's Journey Up. You can find me on Facebook or Google. And I offer lessons here at the farm. So, if you want to come ride around with the ghosts, you can come ride around with the ghosts. I don't know that you're going to see any, but it's an option. And, like we said at the beginning, it's a very peaceful place, very calm place, very good energy. It's just we've got some odd stuff going on here.
Absolutely. No, I would definitely recommend anyone who wants to learn how to ride horses, check out Journey Up Farms. It is a very peaceful property, in the daytime at least. And go get on Duncan's back.
The biting pony.
He is...
No, we have much nicer horses.
He has nearly bit me on the butt. I don't know how many times. And I've only been there 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
He's a jerk.
He is. He is a jerk. He's a lovable, cute jerk. But
he is very lovable, I gotta admit. Well, thank you so much, Claire and Tara, for coming on the show tonight. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. I'll see you later.
Thanks for having us, Alex. Had a great time.
And that, my friends, is nothing to shake a stick at. A lot of weird things are afoot at that ranch. Probably only going to get weirder now that Claire has those security cameras up. Now, the link to the pictures and the videos are going to be in the show notes, as I said before, if you guys have followed along and seen those. Some of them are very inconclusive. It could be a lot of things making those different globular shapes. Tara and Claire see certain things I didn't happen to see in some of those photos, but some of them are very definitely something odd and strange. Not that we really know what they are, but, there's definitely something going on in a good number of those that couldn't just be explained by bugs or dust or whatever external factors that someone might use to explain some of those things off. But since this has become such a long episode with all of the stuff we had through the intro and a very wonderful extended interview, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off and brief. Thank you everyone for tuning in and have a wonderful evening. Bye.